goes 18 for 18, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, Detroit's got red flags everywhere. So Geno Smith had 38 first downs. He engineered 38 first downs. That's the most ever in the history of the league for a losing team. Now, maybe Geno's better than I give him credit for. He's certainly a B quarterback. He's capable, has a good arm, and he has tremendous backs, tight end, wide receiver talent. But they marched up and down the field on Detroit. And basically, Seattle was in a hole from the beginning. They were chasing him. Detroit knew they had to chase, so that's an advantage for the defense. And I look around the NFL right now, and all the good teams play pretty good defense. Minnesota does, and San Francisco does, and Baltimore does, and Buffalo does, except for Monday night, and Sunday night. And Kansas City does. And so I'm looking at all these teams that are pretty good in the NFL. Houston does, and I'm thinking, and Detroit's defense, I don't trust at all. That was a home game, a huge home Monday night football game. Seattle is not getting the whistle. DK Metcalf conversion should have counted. 2-point conversion didn't. Seattle's trailing the entire game, and Seattle's doing whatever they want offensively, like whatever they want. So that's the first thing that concerns me. Secondly, Detroit's in this transition stage. Like Dan Campbell created a tough culture and deserves respect, but he's got to transition from rah-rah guy to situationally elite guy like an Andy Reid. Because my question is, why is that game close? Why are you throwing out of the end zone with a lead late and getting a safety? You got to get past all the tough rah-rah guy stuff. You know, I understand it. Everybody loves it. Bite kneecaps. He created it. I get it. I respect it. Okay, now it's time to transition to a smarter football team. And it feels like too often when I watch Detroit, and they were so bad for so long, I understand this is tough. They're finally winning. And they're kind of giddy. The fans are giddy. The media's giddy in Detroit. Like, we're winning. Okay, that's great. Now you're consistently winning. Now it's the pivot. You've come a long way. You're like the family member that finally got their act together. Everybody's happy for them, but you still wouldn't trust them taking your kids to Disneyland. That's what the Lions have become. Hey, congratulations. You're not vaping anymore, but I would appreciate it if every time you come over, you don't go into a 30-minute lecture on crypto. We all are rooting for Detroit. We all like Detroit. We all think it's great, but I wouldn't trust them. I can't trust them. They're not taking my kids to Disneyland. I just don't trust them. And that's where I am. And they're in this rah-rah stage, and wow, they're fun, and Goff is this. And I mean, they're hard not to like, and maybe we'll know the truth about Detroit pretty soon, because if you look at their schedule, they got an early bye. So Detroit goes into the bye, and then their schedule is pretty brutal. At Dallas, at Minnesota, at Green Bay, at Houston. Jacksonville may have their act together by then. So maybe that's it, but run the clock out. How are you getting a safety? What are you doing? It may not matter against an injury-depleted Seahawk team at home on Monday night. It's going to matter against San Francisco if you're on the road, or a playoff game against Minnesota when you're on the road. Like, clean it up. The rah-rah stuff was fun. It was great. We're all rooting for you. But I watched that game, and I think I was more impressed with what Seattle did on the road with Geno, 500-some yards, 38 first downs, missing their 4 best defensive players in the box. Here's Dan Campbell after.
Every week's going to be different. You know, this was a little bit of a track meet, whereas, you know, these first few games have been more of these low scoring. Our defense has been able to, you score 20 points, you're winning, you know, and so every game's different. You find a way to win the one in front of you.
You know what? Every game kind of looked the same when the Patriots had a dynasty, and every Chiefs game sort of looks the same. And though the outcomes can be different, every Ravens game sort of feels the same. If your team looks different every week, it lacks a consistency that teams that hoist trophies have. The Chiefs games all look the same. New England's game forever looked the same. Even the Ravens game, had they not blown that lead to the Raiders, they were leading late. Like, they all kind of look, you get that dynamic offense, you get speed, you get aggressiveness, you get good coaching, you get toughness. I never know what I get with Detroit.
Okay. Now, I'm sure this whole clip is definitely frustrating a lot of Lions fans, right? They're like, what are you talking about? We won 42-29. Jared Goff, 18 for 18, perfect game, 292 yards, 3 total touchdowns, yada, yada, yada. And I get it. I do. But you have to understand what he's saying. The Detroit Lions are no longer just a great story, okay? People believe that they can win, that they can be a true Super Bowl contender, right? And so when you're at that level, it's trying to figure out what are the weaknesses, what are the issues. It's you're getting looked at under the microscope. So again, Lions fans, before you get real angry, you have to understand that this is a good thing. Again, because that's why he's saying this is no more just rah-rah and a good story. This is like you have the chance to legitimately win and win big, win a Super Bowl or two. But in order to do that, you gotta have the details absolutely locked. The margin of error is just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And quite frankly, I can't believe Colin actually even did this clip like this, honestly, because I watched this game and it was like my exact read on it as well. I have my notes as proof, like it's just, I'm watching this game and there's part of it is amazing and exciting. The run, and first off, the opening drive was awful, right? Like Goff gets sacked and it was like a really bad sack. He couldn't throw it away, which I guess lucky enough because then it ended up being the perfect game. And I was like, oh man, where's this going? Seattle's defense. And then after that, right, they just hit the ground running offensively. I mean, it was so great. And defensively, that first half, they really kept Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks in check, right? Like 100%. Geno, he was obviously moving well and throwing well, but situationally they made everyone feel uncomfortable, and they stopped the run that first half, and it was just like, that first half was really obviously perfect ball, and then that second half is when the offense really started getting going for Geno Smith, and it was just, you have to look at this game from a few different directions, because you're looking at it as, again, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. And the truth is that the Lions should be on a different level than the Seattle Seahawks, right? And little things like giving up a field goal attempt at the end of the first half, right? And like even Troy Aikman's like, I don't really know what they're doing. They're up by 14. I understand Dan Campbell's aggressive, but like, what are you doing? And, that could have been easily turned into a makeable field goal, right? Which, again, then changes the dynamic of the game, shifts the momentum, shifts how the Seattle comes out second half. And it's just all of those little things that the Lions keep doing. That's also why Colin is emphasizing this, because it's these types of things that the Lions keep doing game after game after game. And it's how they lost the NFC Championship game. That's the reality. It's how they lost the NFC Championship game. It robbed them of a Super Bowl. So you want to see them. And quite frankly, the Lions they were probably better equipped to beat the Chiefs than the 49ers. So not only did it rob the Lions of a Super Bowl appearance, but potentially a Super Bowl ring, a trophy. So those are the stakes that we're talking about here, right? And even the trick play, which I loved. It's funny. I'm taking my notes and I write the notes in real time. And I was saying, this is great because this is the type of game that I wanted to see them play. Where I said, no tricks, no nothing. Because I know the hook and ladder was exciting and all that. But I was like, I just want to see the Lions play straight, hard football, good defense, gritty defense, great offense, running the ball. The run game was obviously working so well. It was physical. It was intelligent. It was dynamic. The run was setting up the pass, of course, beautifully. And Goff was just on one. And I was like, this is beautiful. This is great. This is what you do. And then they did the trick play, and I had to like cross it out because I was like, well, now they just did the trick play. And again, a trick play when it works is fun, is exciting, and I get it. As a fan, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. But one, the trick play was completely not needed in that moment. It just wasn't. You were rolling offensively. There's no need. There's really no need for it. There's no advantage for it. In fact, and it could only have a drawback because there was no actual benefit. You were rolling offensively, so it's not like you really needed it to get that touchdown. You didn't. And not to mention, as soon as Goff got that touchdown, everybody started laughing and having fun, and it was so loose. And it kept the Seattle Seahawks in the game. The Seahawks, especially if it wasn't for that pass interference call, offensive pass interference, I mean, like, the Seahawks had a lot of momentum. They absolutely could have tied that game up for real. Like, it was a real thing that was happening. I mean, this was technically a losable game for the Lions. and it shouldn't be, right? That's the whole thing. It shouldn't be. And I know you're like, well, what the heck? The score is 42-29. The score is not 100% representative of what it all was. So I just think there's just, it's just, I came in here and I was like, how do I want to approach this game? Because this is one of those games, right? I obviously watched the night before, then I like sleep on it. It's a late night in the game. I sleep on it, and then I wake up and I go, okay, what am I going to say? It's one of the games where I really kind of can really marinate it because it's a single game. Whereas all these other games, it's like I watch all the games and I have like everything floating in my head. So a lot of times I just have to be like, I don't know, I'll just worry about it later. But this was a game that I watched and I'm like, all right, and I'm just reflecting on it. And it's like, I know Lions fans desperately want everyone to be like, this was an amazing game. Oh my God, Lions are here, big time game, 42 points, Jared Goff, 18 for 18, right? Like, that's exciting. Everyone wants to engage in that. And I gotta tell you, it's actually more courageous than I think you guys realize for Colin to come out and say that, right? For how he did. Because he's going to take a lot of heat in the comment section, just in general. It's not like he's reading the comments, but it's like, it is. There's a lot of pressure from the fans to not give a take like Colin did. And it was my honest read. And I'm curious how Lions fans feel about it, right? Like, if they're like, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. If they're like, no, what the heck? This is nonsense. Quit, blah, 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 blah. And again, that's why I keep trying to emphasize, like, it's not being a hater on the Lions. I love watching the Lions play. I'm rooting for them. That's what he's saying. Everyone's rooting for them. And it's just like, again, the expectations have changed for the Lions, right? And that's where this comes from. It's coming from a place of like, you can win a Super Bowl. You got to button up. And the reason why you didn't win a Super Bowl last year is because you didn't button up. This is a new season now. You have to evolve. You have to get better situationally, right? Run the clock out at the end of first half. Same thing in the second half, right? You don't have to rely on a trick play every single game, right? Like, it's just unnecessary. The defense is the defense, right? I understand what Colin is saying, right? You obviously, these days, you definitely want a better defense than a worse defense, of course. But if the offense can keep rolling like this and putting up points and the run game is unstoppable, it's unguardable. It's like, my God, that run game is just so ferocious. Like, you get excited watching that run game. You're like, oh, yes. Like, it's so hard not to watch it and just want to be those backs and just barrel through people like they do. Because, again, it's both so physical and fast and, dynamic that you're just like, I don't understand how all these guys are able to do it. The two-headed monster, like, it's awesome. And then, again, when Goff you give Goff guys to throw to and he's going to hit them. He didn't even need a clean pocket last night. And yet he was still just, because that's the thing. Everyone always says, oh, when Goff doesn't have a clean pocket versus the blitz, he's trouble. And it's like, well, he didn't have a clean pocket and he had plenty of pressure. And yet he was obviously, again, just dominant, right? Like, that is exciting. Just take care of the game situationally. And I think Geno Smith actually played really well. So I want to emphasize that as well. That was one of my other takeaways. It was like, I was watching Geno Smith and honestly, I was wildly impressed. So I wouldn't even put that all on the Lions, because that's what Colin said. Maybe Geno Smith is better than I think. And I actually think that's true. Geno just had a very strong rhythm to him, right? He was so rhythm and timing. He could see the field beautifully. He moves in the pocket very well. He scrambles very well. Like, Geno Smith is actually just a significantly better quarterback than even, I really give him credit for. The problem with the Seattle Seahawks is that they're slightly limited from a weapons based compared to some of these other teams like the 49ers, like the Lions even. And I think that's a key point there. If the Lions had one extra weapon, right, like the Lions have, like the 49ers have, like the Eagles have, the Seahawks probably win that game, right? So, but it's really just, Metcalf more than anything. So, and they were, like I said, they were struggling to get their run game. A lot of bunch of their yards even came from Geno Smith, for scramble runs and stuff. So, again, by no means was this a bad game. By no means is this a game that you shouldn't be celebrating, that you shouldn't be real happy and giddy about. But again, the focus is not on having a great season. The focus isn't just making the playoffs. The focus isn't just trying to win a playoff game. The focus isn't to just get to the NFC Championship game. The focus isn't just to reach the Super Bowl. It's to win a Super Bowl. And you need to get everything in order to win that Super Bowl. When you look at all these previous teams over the years that have won a Super Bowl, you can see that there was many times that they had to be very strategic, very buttoned up, very situational. Whether it was the Rams with McVay, whether it was any of the Super Bowls with Andy Reid and Mahomes, whether it was back in 2017 with the Eagles, with the Patriots, even in the later years, with when it was like a uglier Super Bowls like the Patriots versus the Rams with Tom Brady, everything just shrinks in the playoffs like that, right? You don't have room for the giddy. You don't have room to kind of to give up a field goal at the end of the first half, right? Like that, the other really great teams take advantage of that. They pounce on that. It's how the Chiefs keep winning. It really is. They just pounce on those mistakes. They just pounce on them, and they minimize their own mistakes. So I think I'm really curious to see how this all lands. Honestly, both my take and Colin's for that matter, because I almost didn't even want to give it, because I was like, oh my God, this was like such a big, exciting game. Jared Goff, perfect, perfect. And I'm going to come out here and say, well, because I did that last time. I did that when it was, I think it was versus the Cardinals, where I was like, hey, that was a good game, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't exactly what I was hoping to see. I need to see better play from the Lions. And people were like, what are you talking about? Blah, 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 and people jump on you. And I'm like, I'm just telling you how I see it, man. Like a win is not a win to me. I think that's the dumbest thing. A win is a win is a win. No, it's not. It absolutely, positively is not. Okay? It really, really isn't. The stakes are too high for the Lions. They have too many elite weapons right now. They're too good of a team. I think they just ultimately need to be smarter. That's really what it comes down to. They just need to play smarter. They need to play like they are a top contender, rather than trying to show everyone that they are a top contender. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Are you buying the Lions as a Super Bowl contender? Do you agree with what Colin's saying? That, yeah, this was a great win, but there's red flags. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.